Do you know a new Volkswagen Golf rolls off the production line about every 40 seconds? Seventh generation of one of the most popular compact cars in the world has just underwent a facelift. Incremental or in-depth changes?
Changes are subtle on the outside, but what do you expect from a midlife cycle refresh, especially with a brand as conservative as Volkswagen? In the front, the lower chrome strip of the radiator grille is continued as a chrome element in the headlights. Wow! Speaking of which, the Golf now gets LED day running lights and the adaptive cruise control sensor is now hidden away behind the logo rather than protruding from the air intake at the bottom of the bumper. In the back we now get LED tail lamps. In higher trim levels the indicator function is animated, like in an Audi. And like in the Volkswagen Passat, there are now fake chrome exhaust tips. And what's changed under the bonnet?
The most important change is the 1.5 TSI engine. You heard me right, 1.5, not 1.4. It replaces the 1.4 power plant. It still has 150 horsepower, so no changes there. However, later on there's going to be a 130 horsepower Blue Motion version of this engine, and that's going to have obviously 5 horsepower more than the 1.4 TSI. Volkswagen claims the new 1.5 TSI engine will use between 4.6 and 5.1 liters per 100 kilometers. New TSI engine focuses mainly on economy and lower emissions, not necessarily on performance. So as long as you're driving at a constant speed, everything is fine. However, under hard acceleration, which will require me to drop a gear or two, or 3. It doesn't like it. It pains me so. And I realized this was uphill, but it doesn't matter if it's uphill or if it's on a flat road. It just doesn't like hard acceleration. So whether it's a manual gearbox or a DSG, the engine sound is just not very pleasant. It's surprising because in the 1.4 150 horsepower TSI, I remembered it was good even in a Passat.
Perhaps it's not as economical as VW promises, but I averaged between 6 and 7 liters per 100 kilometers combined. I did take a 1.4 TSI 150 horsepower Film Crew Beetle for a spin, and although the older engine is, in my opinion, more dynamic across the rev band, it also uses between 1 and 1.5 liters per 100 kilometers more than the new 1.5 TSI Golf.
Better economy was achieved, among others, thanks to lower friction and better heat management. Other engines in the lineup include a 1.0 TSI, 85 horsepower, that's the one we've seen in the Volkswagen Up, and 110 horsepower. Not so economical compared to the 1.5 TSI, but definitely cheaper.
Well, we don't know the pricing yet, because the new 1.5 TSI motor will be available in mid-2017. Meanwhile, a 110 horsepower 1.0 TSI Golf is about $1,000 cheaper than a 1.4 125 horsepower TSI version, so you really have to want a 1-liter 3-banger under the bonnet. But I bet it looks good for emissions compliance.
Regardless of the engine version, the Golf rides well. Steering is light unless you put the car in dynamic mode, then the steering becomes heavier but still quite artificial. However, you do know what's happening with the front wheels, and that's regardless of adaptive suspension. Speaking of which, this adaptive suspension is known to make noises in Volkswagen cars, in older Volkswagen cars. I often complained about this, but in this car it doesn't seem to make any more noises, so Volkswagen hopefully fixed it.
But there is more. Volkswagen focuses on connectivity. Top trim models can be now equipped with a 12-inch active info display, which is Volkswagen speak for Audi's virtual cockpit. There are also new infotainment systems. With the flagship Discover Pro, its over 9-inch display recognizes gestures, although for now it's mainly to do with music and radio sections. I bet more functions will appear in the future. You can also configure your home screen, and there is access to online information like news or weather. Volkswagen is also testing intelligent home solutions. For example, you can use an external app called Doorbird on the infotainment screen. The app allows remote unlocking and locking of your home. In the future, Volkswagen does not rule out implementing its own solutions, for example similar to what Volvo is testing, like opening the car boot for a courier to leave a parcel inside. Of course, the Golf is the definition of practicality, but that doesn't mean it lacks emotions. These two attributes don't always go together, but they certainly do in the GTD.
If, like me, you're wondering, why do you actually need a performance diesel car? Well, it's to get performance and, at the same time, good fuel economy. What sort of good fuel economy? Well, yesterday I've driven this car for maybe 200 kilometers or so, and fuel consumption was around 6 liters per 100 kilometers. That's pretty good from a 184 horsepower car, which, if you put it in dynamic mode or sport mode, can shift. And it even has fake exhaust sound inside the cabin. Ooh, this car will go, and it will make you lose your license. It's actually very agile, and I never thought I'm gonna say this, but I like a diesel estate Golf. Oh my god, it's time to die. But it's a very good car, very competent car. It drives well, it will save you fuel if you don't want to drive it too hard. The suspension, we just went over a speed hump. It's quite comfortable, and this car, by the way, also has dynamic chassis control, and it's set in the sporty setting, so it's a comfortable car, and it's on big rims. Brilliant. You can drive it on the motorway, save yourself a lot of money, and if you feel like it, if you have a rough day, better take a breath. But if you have a day that you would like to fool around a bit, this is the car for you.
Volkswagen now offers semi-autonomous driving in traffic up to 60 km per hour. Earlier I tested this system in Audi Q7. Unfortunately, it's difficult to find any traffic in Mallorca in February, so I can't report on how it really works. Other safety features include pedestrian detection with autonomous emergency braking.
I hope you'll forgive me, but I decided to save the best for last, and the best here during this press launch event is the Golf GTI, which now has 230 instead of 220 horsepower, or 245 instead of 230 in the performance version. And if you take it with DSG, it's like 0.3 liters per 100 kilometers more efficient. Bollocks to that, because it goes like stink. Oh yes. How fun it is to drive a car with a manual gearbox that just seems to never run out of power regardless of where it is in the rev range. On these somewhat bumpy roads and twisty roads at that, the suspension is doing very, very well to cope with whatever I have to throw at it. Traction control intervened once, only once. I've seen the light just come on there for a fraction of a second. Otherwise, this car sticks to the road, and it's just great fun to drive. And if you don't want all this, if you want to drive like a normal person, not like a goat with a firecracker up its bottom, this thing will do as it's told. It's got its lane assist, it's got its active cruise control and everything. It's not hard, it's not harsh. I expected it to be very harsh, and it's not. It's a perfect compromise between sporty handling and comfort, and Volkswagen has done a really great job here, and I don't know how they do it. Fuel economy, if you give a toss, it's between 9 and 10 liters per 100 kilometers, and that's regardless of how hard you drive it. And the 1.5 TSI that I've tested earlier, that did about 7, driving like a granny. Okay, now let's put it in sport, because what I was doing right now was normal mode. Now we're in sport. And it goes like stink, man. Gotta slow down. I don't want to get any airtime here. I'm licensed to fly drones, not cars. Oh, golly, this is good. Forget about 1.5 TSI, forget about GTD. You want this one. If you want a Golf, you want this one. And you know, it's not as fun as Civic Type R, which roars and screams and is all raw and whatever. But for an everyday car, I'll take a Golf GTI any day.
Adaptive cruise control now works up to 210 km per hour, which, as far as I'm concerned, gives you the bragging rights, but is not exactly something you're going to ever need, not even in Germany. There is now a trailer assist system which helps you reverse with a trailer. We've seen this in the Passat, and it's now possible to assign all your settings to a car key. Very convenient with so many features. As usual, you can have the Golf as a hatchback, estate and the off-roady all-track trim. There is a choice of petrol and diesel engines. The refreshed Golf R and e-Golf are around the corner, set to debut in the spring of 2017, but there is no Cabrio. If you like driving with wind in your hair, VW offers the Beetle Cabriolet. Prices of the facelifted Golf start at €17,850 for a 1.0 TSI hatchback.
This is what the facelifted 7th generation Volkswagen Golf looks like. And do you like the direction that Volkswagen is taking? Let me know in the comment section below. Share, rate, subscribe. New episodes every Friday. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.